to introduce today Abuzar Kabir, who's a visiting postdoctoral fellow at the International Forensic Research Institute in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry here at FIU. Dr. Kabir received his diplomas at the University of Dhaka in Bangladesh, and he's been working in industry for several years in various capacities. The major focus of his research now has been the application of something called soil gel chemistry, which is the fastest growing discipline in material science. He's published a lot on this and researched a lot. He's here today, though, to talk about the importance of science education, both pedagogically and content-wise, science education's social, political, and economic impact, and how and why, and how to solve the problem of our deficits here in the United States in terms of science education. So again, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Kabir.
So thank you, Dr. Lando, for a nice introduction, and I take pleasure to be here. Mostly, this is my every semester I try to come. If not, then of course once a year. So this is my third lecture in this wonderful forum, and today I will be talking about science education with global challenges and social impact. So first of all, before I start, I would like to thank New York Times for sponsoring this wonderful event. And with that, I will start. So as you know that it's a burning problem. Now we are heading towards 10 plus billion population estimated to be in 2050. So with population is aging, with many old people around, longevity, with increased medical technology, science and other. So it's a big challenge for us, it's a big challenge for scientists, it's a big challenge for nations, it's a big challenge for legislators to keep up with increased food, medicine, shelter, communication, and that only can be achieved by maintaining or increasing productivity, creativity, ingenuity. Otherwise, many of us will be starving in coming days. Our land is definitive, it's not progressing with the growing population, which is exponentially progressing. So first I would like to go back to the original article that would be the background of our discussion point today, which was published in New York Times, one in July 19, 2011 and the other one February 7, 2012. Also another article published recently in 2011 in Times US, which reads the next great resource shortage, US scientists. So it's not only problem in United States, but as I mentioned that the scope is global indeed. So this slide tells how much share we have in graduates all over the world. So United States used to be in the leading front with 23.8%, and slowly our position in terms of global graduates in all disciplines combined are losing fastly, with China and India picking up, and also Korea, Singapore and other many developing and developed nations are taking the lead steadily. Here is a picture that tells that what are the percentage of workforce in science, technology, math and engineering in every 1,000 employed population in different countries. So, as you see, Korea is leading with 3,500, and our situation in United States 15% is even. Country like Chile in our south are even having more percentage in their workforce. So here is a snapshot of percentage of associate, bachelor and master's degrees in United States. As you see, the trend is downwards, if not, I mean, it used to be 25% in 1985, and in 2010 or 11, it's leveling up with very minor increase per year. So here is the comparison of science, technology, engineering and math graduates with 4 years degree. United States has increased 24% between 2000 and 2008, China 218%, India 300%. So now let's take a look. We do not need many lawyers, but unfortunately we are producing 150,000 law students. Many of them will be unemployed in coming years. On the contrary, we do need many computer scientists and engineers. So there is a big disparity between the number we are producing and the number of job we are having in coming years, 40,000 versus 120,000. So many of the positions will remain unemployed or unfilled. A recent study by General Accountability Office indicates that many students, even though they start program in science, technology, engineering, math, many dropped out, and the study shows that it relates directly to the preparation that began in their school years. In another capacity, I happen to be a faculty in Broward College, and I found that many of my students who are health science professionals are extremely unprepared in science, technology and mathematics. They cannot even perform simple mathematical operation, let alone understanding the whole concept of science and other issues. So it's very dire situation. So in 2000, 93% students in grade 5 to 9 were taught physical science by a teacher who did not have certification or any experience in physical science. So teacher who are our students or our kids who are being exposed to teachers who are by any means trained in their relevant subject. So in other words, their students are not getting the material they should be getting by lack of preparation from the teachers. On the other side, Singapore has 67% science graduates. So some people may argue that why do you need that many science graduates? So the answer comes from this statistics. Singapore is an independent nation. They know what to do and what not to do, like us. France is an independent nation. They know why do they need more science graduates, like South Korea. Whenever we use some scientific instruments, iPod, small cars in United States, many of them are coming from South Korea. That tells the whole story why we are falling behind in every aspect. So sometimes we take pride that, well, we are doing fine. In United States, lots of invention, lot of new ideas in our graduate schools, myself included, but unfortunately 56% engineering graduates are from abroad, and once they finish their program, up until now there is a notion that, well, this is the best place in the globe to live in, and people would certainly live in the United States. But due to the change and rapid change in geo-economic and political scenario, now people are going back. Even lots of Americans find themselves working in China, India, and many other countries. So we need to pay real attention what is going on in our neighborhood, in our next state or United States as a whole. So there are some figures that would disturb you, and it disturbed myself included. There is a US Department of Labor projection that in 2014 we need more than 2 million people to work in STEM field. Unfortunately, we are not prepared to take that challenge. Funding tells how government, how legislators believe in progression of a given field. So if you see the progression in funding, it's really disturbing that 45% less in 2004 than fiscal year 1976. So we are not investing more, rather we are intentionally falling behind. On the other hand, China, every year beginning 1999, they are spending 20% each year, and now their annual expenditure to science education around $100 billion. So here is a snapshot of how much we are spending in research and development every year. And as you see, Singapore, United States, Taiwan, China, especially South Korea, China and Taiwan are in the forefront in their science and research and development expenditure. So these are the snapshot what we are dealing with. With that, I would open up for open discussion with that. So the question to myself and to you, that what and how we can increase our number of science graduate. So we are not, at this point, we are not talking about the quality of our science graduates. We are talking about number, and I intend to talk sometime maybe in coming semesters or years about the quality. Are we equal? Are we better in terms of quality, or are we not even close to other developing or emerging economies like China, India? So with that, first of all, I would like you to engage in discussing shortage of qualified teachers. That I found one would be among many discussion points. So it might, the implication might be due to the shortage of qualified teachers. Yes.
I thought you actually recently just instituted the biology education program, which the difference is you don't get a teaching degree and you take the specialized biology classes. You get a biology degree and you take the teaching classes you need in order to portray that information to students. Science and math is usually one of the most difficult subjects, and though we may know our material, we don't know how to teach that to other students. and that was actually just instituted, I think, last year. Now with that, because it's such a large demand in the public schools, the pay rate to become a science or any STEM teacher right now is actually pretty high for high school, and when you graduate, you get a teaching certificate, so you can go straight in.
Okay, that's a good point. So, do you all agree that, as she mentioned, that STEM teachers get paid properly, if not poorly? I mean, is it a true proposition, or you have some other opinion? I mean, are the teachers well accepted, well paid, well revered?
I just want to propose, I want to propose another perspective. So I'm a professor in the College of Education and was part of the College of Education when we went through this separation of training teachers in a College of Education for science degrees as opposed to training teachers in their subject areas for the science degrees. And from the education standpoint, we're short-changing students who want to go into education by training them exclusively in the science area with minimal training in pedagogy, i.e. what you said of transferring the information and engaging students in science so that they come out with a love of science. Just a different perspective.
Okay, yes, please.
Oh, sorry. What do you see is the cause, the principal cause of this? Because, for example, I'm from Peru, and we have the same problem. We have a lot of lawyers. People prefer study humanities. People don't like science. We have very few engineers. We have to export engineers from other countries. It's very expensive for us. We have the same problem. What's the cause of this problem?
Any other opinion? So first of all, I'm not sure whether you understand the problem that in order to address that issue, first of all, we have to have loving teachers. That one teacher, to give you a perspective, lately, as I mentioned that I am teaching future nurses in Broward College. I was introduced by the dean that students are rocks. You don't expect anything from the students. They don't want to learn, and many of them are here just to utilize government money, and they would disappear after a couple of classes. All right. So first day I bring a piece of rock with me and introduce to my students that, do you recognize this? Everybody came up with the answer, it's a rock. And then I asked them, do you recognize that it is you? They felt offended. Definitely we are not rock. So then I moved on that, well, that is how you are introduced to me. I was told that it's a 3-hour long class. I was asked to take attendance twice because in the middle 50% of the students would leave the class. All right. So I said, well, that's fine, but I can challenge that I will never ever take attendance twice. And so far I have not seen even a single student leaving the class. What's going on? Sorry for the problem. So anyway, so the question here is, I truly believe that there is a disconnection between students and teachers, and at the end we cannot translate our energy, our vision, our passion to the students, and finally students don't get motivated and do not continue in science education, which I would definitely concede that it's not as funny as like humanities. You continuously discuss hours after hours, not being bored, but science is a little bit challenging compared to other discipline. So, now my question, do you feel that we do have shortage of trained teachers to cater science education to our students? And we have a global participation here. So, I would like some opinion from abroad as well. It's a global issue, not United States issue. So, please feel free to tell your opinion or your experience. Yes, please.
I have some questions, if I may.
Sure.
How long has have the challenges, so to speak, been?
Okay. So, if I understand correctly, I mean it's been long, but nowadays, I mean, if you remember, in 1900 we had only 2 billion people. We are just in 50 years, the population will be 10 plus billion. So, it was not as hard as it is right now. So, science education is always challenging, but now it is more challenging because we have the same land, we have the same technology, but we need more productivity, more manufactured material, more place to live in. So, I mean, what exactly your question?
How long have all the challenges, perhaps, in the United States, the lack of students now?
So, I mean, I would say it started last 15-20 years.
Is there maybe a normal age or grade in which students start or stop engaging or being interested in the science fields?
Well, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. So, as students slowly move on to higher classes, they tend to lose their momentum in or passion in science, and many of the students even change their course once they figure out that they cannot get admission into medical school. So, there is a big dropout point. Once students know they cannot be a medical doctor, they switch to humanities. Yes.
But isn't that the expectation if you're not doing well in the field? I mean, why would you continue if you have like a 2.5 GPA?
That's a good question. That's a good question. But it's a free country with freedom of your own decision, and you can do whatever you feel like doing. So, I learned from many students lately that in countries like China, India, or developing countries, they do have some structured way. So, you cannot simply all of a sudden pop up from somewhere and ask that you would like to be a medical doctor. Yes.
I have a question and then I have a thought. The teachers here, like some of them, are they doing research and then are they required to teach when they're doing research here?
So, which level you are asking about?
What do you mean?
At FIU, or you're asking
Any
community
university,
college?
like when someone is doing research here, are they required to teach also?
Yes. Yes.
So
Basically, I would address that issue. That's a wonderful question. Wonderful question. Normally, it's 50-50. 50-50. Our time is split 50% research and 50% teaching.
Right, so perhaps maybe these people are doing research and not really interested in teaching. And like they go into it and they're like, okay, I have to teach, so I'll teach anyway. So I can do my research, but and they just do it, because they have to and not necessarily with passion.
Okay, so that's a good point. But my question is, normally when our kids are being exposed to teacher in school, no school teacher is involved in research. So in high school or middle school, normally even in community colleges, they barely do any basic or applied research. Mostly they spend their time in teaching. So, but the foundation begins at school, and we are basically losing at this front with qualified teachers. Yes.
I agree that the problem starts at the grade school level. The thing is that we have an educational system which just
instead of encouraging students that are doing bad, it makes them go lower and lower, and it turns into a very segregated educational system. Like, you have, for example, I moved here a week before I started 9th grade, and I started out in all regular classes. So they have regular and honors and AP, whatever, and different schools have like ACE and IB here, different weird things. And I started out there thinking, oh, well, you know, everybody here seems really lazy and everybody here seems not interested, but I also and like I was like, oh, you know, they're not taking advantage of the great free education they have in this country that's better than they will have in mine. And then I started taking, like, after the second year I went to honors classes and AP classes, but then I realized it's not that simple as I thought. There's social issues that factor in, and usually more privileged kids end up being in the higher classes, and they are doing better since they're little because they have parents that can help them out, that can sit there and do their homework with them, that encourage them to go into school, and they don't have so many issues in the home, so they can focus in school, and they have the cultural capital to do well in school, while, you know, less privileged kids can't. And the less privileged kids are stuck with the bad teachers, because instead of being encouraged when they're in those regular classes, okay, you're not doing as well as everybody else, let's try to find out why, let's try to solve your issues. They're just given bad teachers, they're given really bad textbooks that are discouraging them from actually learning. They're just teaching them what, you know, pretty much, this is going to sound very cliche, but what corporations want them to learn. It's something that starts from that core, and I mean, I don't think it has much to do with population, because there's more than enough resources to go around. There's food to go around. I mean, we're producing more than enough food to feed the entire world. It's just how this is all distributed across different sectors of the population, not just globally, but locally. There's a disparity. That's, I think, why.
That's a wonderful point. So at this point, we concluded that definitely there is a shortage of trained teacher, and you know, there are, as Dr. Landorf mentioned, that FIU as a part of the global community, that we are trying to bring the gap. We are trying to close the gap as much as you can. So with that, we will move on to the next item. Many of the students often complain that learning science is boring. There is no fun in that. So some educators pointed out that if we can make it more fun, part of our daily life activity, it would bring more students in that field. So what is your take?
More hands-on classes rather than just text. You know?
Okay.
I mean, some science classes have labs, you know, that you can take, but they're always separate and it's more money. So, I don't know, maybe integrating more labs into the lecture too.
Okay, all right, that's a good point. Any other opinion?
Can I ask, how many of you in this room are science majors? Some kind of science major?
So many of them are from science.
So some are STEM majors. So many, the majority of you are STEM majors, and what is your impression of your science teachers from K through 12, your science education K through 12? Or why did you become science majors?
What was the driving force? Yeah. What was the motivation?
Yeah.
I don't think it's generally the professor's fault, because any career that you want to go to is all based, like for me, I think it's a self-motivation. And so, yeah, there have been science courses where I absolutely hate, but it hasn't stopped me to be what I want to be, which is a doctor. But as growing up, I do recall in 8th grade, my professor for science, or my teacher, he never taught us. Like, all we did was watch Bill Nye, Science Guy. And, I mean, everybody passed with an A, I guess. But I think it's just that in middle school and high school, I guess they don't take it as serious as they should, just because it's just a regular course that we need for our curriculum. But I I started off as an engineering major, and I was into an honors college in FAU, and then that wasn't for me, so I switched to nursing, and I said no. And once I took Bio 1 with a professor in Broward College, she was the one who, like, just her passion and how she explained the different processes within the body, that's what got me going into the pre-med field. So yeah, to some extent, it is the professor or teacher or the facilitator's fault as to why a student may not want to pursue a certain career. But I also think it's your self-motivation that's a very huge driving factor.
Yes.
I agree with this young lady where she said that a lot of our professors here are more concerned with their research than actually teaching us. You'll hardly go through something in lecture, it ends up on the exam and you run it with a 60. And then they'll just curve the whole class. So we actually didn't learn that material at all. And then, when we're prepared for our graduate exams and whatever field we have to go into, we have to pay $1,000 for reviews, when we should have learned it before. Like, the first time I was actually exposed to chemistry, and I did AP in high school, I did all the chemistries, biologies. It was a rude awakening for me, because I thought that I had enough reinforcement that I should have been prepared.
Any other thought? Yes.
I had a professor, she actually did a case for advocacy, but maybe the love that a professor and teacher can have for science helps a lot, because that woman, wow, the way it's just her experience, maybe any professor's or teacher's experience can contribute to a great education. But yeah, for example, her I guess teaching skills very detailed, especially in the science field, is something that should be done. But yes, I guess the love.
That's a great point. Yes.
I have an experience actually which astonishes a lot of people. I actually was teaching at a school, middle school and high school last year, and honestly I haven't even finished my bachelor's in science, because most private schools don't even require you to have your degree finished or certification. And the kids got lucky because I actually really love science and I feel like I'm educated well enough. And I came in like half through the year, and they knew nothing. Like, the teacher didn't teach them anything before me, and what astonished me was that most of them hated science. And like, when I would try to give them a perspective, a creative perspective, in which they could understand it, they actually started to love it. And they started to ask me questions, and then some of them would even say, oh, I want to be a doctor now, and all these different things. And it's like, I really think it has a lot to do with the teacher. They got lucky that I'm into it, but like, some teachers don't have any certifications. Like, I heard one professor in the same school that told me I know nothing, I'm just teaching out of the book. And when they ask me questions, I don't even know how to answer them. I'm like, oh my God, it's terrible. Like, so private schools have that issue too, where they don't have that certification for some teachers.
So, with that, I would like to add one additional point, that if you compare with South Korea with around 47% their population graduated from STEM and 15 in United States. So, what do you think might be the root cause of this disparity? Don't we need many science graduates, or we don't want to be scientists by any means? So what might be the, yes?
I think it depends, just like the high school and middle school background. The teachers are more focused on standardized testing, like SCAT or whatever state has their standardized testing. And so kids, you grow to dislike science in middle school and high school, you're just preparing for that test. And then when you get to college, instead of that test helping you, you hit a gen chem class, or you hit a basic class and you realize you know nothing about science. And you feel, instead of getting encouraged, you feel like, this is nothing for me. But it probably could be for you because you were taught that certain areas of subject.
Yes.
I totally agree with what she just said, but on top of that, I also think that the reason for the gap is there's a lot of focus on upward mobility and people just want to get from when they started. They just want to find something that makes them more money or keeps them in a social class that they were in if they're already in a really high social class. So there's a point that I said before that, like more privileged kids get access to better education sometimes. If they get good science courses and if they do well and if they know all their things, they still might not go into the sciences because it doesn't, in the United States, it doesn't mean sometimes maintaining as high a status. They want to go into, sometimes there's brilliant minds that are wasted because they go into Wall Street and they become investment bankers and all of these other useless things that bring no contribution to the world whatsoever. However, in other countries, to go into the sciences, to be an engineer, to be a computer scientist, it's not for mobility. You get the chance to have a better income and you can move to the US or to Europe or to wherever, and because you'll find a job anywhere, and that to you is like getting a higher status. If people weren't so focused and making more money in an easier way, many people would just go into what their passion is and not into what just.
So, yes.
Especially maybe on minorities, the economic factor could be something stressful.
That will address later. Definitely, we have a point on that. Yes.
Going back to what you're saying, doing something that you're passionate about would be awesome, and it would be good if you're really good at it. But just look at today's economy. It's like you can't just go into the art industry and just be like, oh, I'm going to be the greatest painter in the world and expect to make millions out of a painting. I think it's all about being realistic in life, and you have to go to, I'm not saying I'm money hungry, but I'm saying you have to go to where the money is, per se, because, we're all here trying to get an education, so it's best to use your time wisely and do something that you know you'll make the most out of it. And so, that's just my view.
Okay.
Money is the ultimate thing that.
So still the question remains unanswered. The question is, how would you break that stalemate? A 15%, very minor amount, will have around 200,000 unfilled position in 2014 in computer science, when we are producing only around 40,000. So how do survive as a prospering nation? Would we simply import educated people from other countries, or what? Yes.
I think that we're spending a lot of resources as a nation in importing individuals. Just look at the chemistry building and the physics building. Most of the individuals that we see there are not American by any chance. So that gives you a point of view. What are we doing with our education? Are we raising our own school children to be involved in science and engineering technology, or are we just importing? I think that if we focus our resources in training people since elementary and middle school, then we wouldn't have to import so many people.
All right. So that's a good point. That's a good point. And many of the faculties, many of the researchers, even in NASA, in other high priority facilities like all the government research lab, many scientists are from abroad. But nowadays there is a trend that people are going back to their home country. I would give a simple example. Lately, China started a new program that if one professional go back to China, they would get 1 million yuan in Chinese currency, that is equivalent to 150,000 US dollar, with free house and an academic position. So you get a academic position, you get $150,000 incentive right away, and also get a secure job with your and live with your neighbor, friends, and other. And similar programs are being run in India as well. So we have to find a way to educate our own kids in United States to be taking or to fill the gap. So let's continue. How about gender gap? not only in United States, not only in countries like Middle Eastern country where women are not many women are not educated, let alone STEM field, but there is always a difference or gender gap between male and female, and that is very prevalent in science education. So, what is your take? Why women are not taking math, science, technology and engineering classes?
I'd like to go back to the point before about your original question, how to increase the number of science graduates. For me, it's about putting real resources into education for teachers, K through 12 teachers. Not in any, as much as I don't want to say this, higher ed is too late.
No, I think we are doing fine in higher education. Still, we are the top among all the nations in quality, in number of graduates. Even though many of them are from abroad, but at least once they come, we can find a way to keep them in United States. But I mean, we are not generating many in our middle school or high school years. That is absolutely true.
Right, because we're not serious about
We are not.
serious about education. We're not serious about teachers. We don't give them the status. We don't give them the resources. We don't give them the money. We don't give them the training. And until we do that, we're going to have this problem.
So that's a wonderful point, and still I would like to have you engage into discussion that why women are falling behind than male in science education. Why women don't like science education, math education, or engineering.
One of the things I feel that contributes to it is that there's a lot more incentive for males to go into the field than for females. Like, for example, I know a lot of people who are going into education, like for my female friends, they like it because they feel that they'll have like the same schedule with their kids. They're going to be out during the summers and they'll have weekends free. So it's like it's more tailored to them, whereas science and math are more demanding curriculums. So it's like it has to be more flexible in those cases.
Any other opinion? Yes.
I kind of agree with her, and I would like to build up on that. I think that it's a cultural issue. I mean, women not only have the role later on in life, they decide to have family and kids, not only have the role of being a career person, but also have to go home, maybe cook, clean, do all those domestic things, and also take care of the kids. So when it comes to a science education, it's very demanding. First of all, the schooling for it, maybe you don't have to put in as many hours of schoolwork or studying. If you go into another major that is non-science, and then when you graduate, what jobs will you find? Research takes a lot of time. If you're going to go into research, if you're going to go into any of the other sciences, it's very intensive. So I think that historically, women have left that up to the men to find easier jobs that can accommodate to lifestyle that you will have.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. So let's move on to the second phase of our discussion. We basically covered everything, gender issue, and I mean, I would simply touch maybe for one more questions with there is a disparity in minority. Minority are underrepresented in science education, and what's the root cause of that in your opinion? Why minorities are not coming along with science education? Already some of you already addressed that teachers are not well qualified, many science classes are not being offered. So would you like to add any other point with that, or you are okay, you accept that? Yes.
I feel like it's a very superficial grading system. Like, for example, that whole bell curve thing, teachers feel like if some students do poorly, it's just okay because it's like you have to have it balanced. Some do good, some do okay, and some are lagging behind, but they accept that. And I feel like it should be stripped down and built up better to encourage students?
It's a wonderful point, and I would like to add one additional point in my experience in Broward College. So they have 4 in-class tests. So far we have finished 2, and 100% of students are failing with 50% average. And I intend not to curb. I am not sure how would I handle in later days. So I told my students that I cannot write any test simpler than that or easier than that. Still, 100% students are as of now failing. So with that, we'll move on to the next stage. So I mean, there are 2 aspects of societal impact on science education. Society can be receiver in the receiving point of the benefit of science. We invent, people talk. I am from a country named Bangladesh, and we have around 140 million people, half of US population, but size similar to state of Florida. In that more than 80% people have cell phone, with many multiple cell phone in different pockets. So they are talking. Even a rickshaw driver, a small manually driven tricycle that basically carry people from one place to other in local areas, the rickshaw driver has even cell phone talking to his wife or family. In the meantime, he is driving under the sun. So science has many benefits, and society can even spur the growth. I used to be a faculty in Bangladesh, a premier university over there, and over there you feel blessed when you are a university faculty. You are a national figure. But here, when I was doing my PhD, I was told by my student that if you are not a challenge taker, then you only teach in academia. I bought their notion and worked in industry for a couple of years. As when she introduced me, I mean, I worked 5-6 years in industry, and I found that it's basically somehow enslaving people with open mind. I mean, you cannot work in industry if you are an open-minded guy and you would like to contribute with your openness. So you do whatever they ask you to do. So, I mean, now, in your opinion, how society can impact on science education? What would, in your opinion, US society can contribute in bringing or closing the gap from 15% to Korea's 47%? How society can contribute? Yes.
What you just pointed out, that's exactly what these textbooks that are increasingly being the teachers of students not right now. That's what they're teaching them. They're teaching them to work in industries where they're not supposed to be creative. They're just supposed to do as they're told. And right now it's only getting worse because there's only more online classes and less teachers. I mean, when I graduated high school last year, it was suddenly from one year to the next, they made, like, some people had half their classes online. From one year to the next, the year before they only had like one or none, then the next year they have like half, and it's only getting worse. And that's not real education. That's not, it's spurring interest in students. And it's
that's a very good point. That's a very good point. So many of us are a little bit elderly. Some are faculties, some are researchers. So what do you think? I mean, what might be the ideal role of a society to spur momentum in our kids to be more in science? What role a society can play?
I think they have to get rid of the control these companies because these are all things that are owned by companies. And
That's a great point. That's a great point. Wonderful.
they're pushing these textbooks, the online classes, standardized testing, and these are so boring for students, especially for students in poor neighborhoods. Because if you have a D school and then if you get dropped into an F school, which is what happens in mostly poor neighborhoods, you don't get any creative classes. You don't get any classes where you actually get taught. You only get taught to tests. And these tests are extremely boring, and the material is extremely boring, and it's very just
Lots of extreme. See? So, any other opinion, please? Yes.
Maybe universities should be regulate the vacancies in each area, no? Maybe regulate the vacancies in
That's a wonderful idea. I mean, I noticed that there is no real bridge between middle school, high school, and university. So transitions are always rough. When students are coming with their high school degree, they don't know what to do, and they are given a big book to finish in 12 classes. If you are in Broward College, or maybe 36 classes if you are in FIU. So there is a challenge definitely. And now the last but not the least, the last point would be how society can benefit if you are a scientist. Is there anything that society would get out of you? Yes.
As scientists, maybe experts in the science field, promote more science, maybe, even in the media, for kids, maybe science shows, science cartoons that involve science, but scientists can do a lot actually.
So that's a good point. That's a good point. Yes.
We used to be a nation of like inventions, research, like basically discovered electricity. Like we definitely lost that passion, science.
Yes. So I mean, so let's see what we have. So it's a image that you see, that $3,000 car being sold in India, and $35 notebook, same in India, and similarly, the same product are available in China as well. So these are the benefit that we look forward from you as a future scientist. So I would simply conclude that definitely we have extreme shortage in qualified teachers. We have shortage in passion, where we do not have any real commitment to ourselves, nor even to the society, nor in larger scope to the nation. We are not committed to, we would like to be lawyer, not scientist, even though we know that we may not get job. So I would hope that we would learn something from today's discussion, and will work tirelessly, we would work relentlessly to close the gap between 47 and 15 in coming days, and will continue our position as a global leader in science, technology, engineering, math, and will hold our leadership position in future with growing population. With that, I would like to thank you all for being in this wonderful discussion forum, and see you in coming sessions. Thank you very much.